Okay, good. Then, if you don't have any questions or comments, which I'm will happy to talk about, I know one of the things that's a little hard this semester, and we're working hard next semester to make more cohesiveness between the lecture and the lab. So I'm sorry that it's a little bit out of order for you guys with the brain having come first, but my issue I realize is that I have to restructure my tests um, um, in terms of doing that. So I have to have it during the break. I have to do that. So I apologize that you guys still have to struggle with that a little bit. But what we're doing in our week 10 after we went to the heart and the blood vessels as well as the lymphatics, we're going to go to blood and talk about blood, and then also segue into the immune system, which is um, which is kind of related to the blood. So we're gonna have those lectures on blood. We have our lectures on immune system, and then we got us two quizzes or questions around that, and then we have a coloring. That's a pretty small coloring this week, so that shouldn't take you long. That's about the different blood cell types, and red blood cells and then the white blood cells, and he talks about the different blood cell types, and you basically are just labeling those in the color labeling. So this is the smallest one of those. But then also this week we also have the blood pressure health kit. So when I was thinking of how to integrate blood pressure or blood or heart, really, I think, well, high blood pressure is one of those things that most of us who get a little older struggle, especially in our society. And well, I would think probably most Western societies with not as much physical activity included in the daily life, as well as also though where I go with it with the high salt intake that we do. And so instead of measuring our blood pressure, which is fun to do, during the pandemic, we couldn't just go to CVS or Walgreens and stick our hand in that chair and let it measure it. And I couldn't really do that. And everybody having a blood pressure cuff at home might be a smart idea, but it's not reality. And so I figured the biggest culprit that we have when it comes to high blood pressure is our high intake of salt. And a lot of the salt that we take in is is already incorporated in the foods that we buy. And so it's one of those food label reading type things. Of course, it's hard to measure your salt when you do your own cooking, and you just kind of got to go with average type of stuff in terms of when you do your own cooking. But I want you for 1 week or for 5 days to basically track your salt intake that you do. The other reason why I'm doing that, the tracking and sort of the awareness building through that, is because salt is one of those adaptive senses. So it's like adaptive things. So it's like you eat salty foods, and at some point the salty food tastes like regular food, and then you put more salt in. And so it's an interesting one, and I catch myself all the time. It's like a little bit of brain twist. It's like first I use less salt, then my food tastes bland, and then all of a sudden that bland in a few days tastes normal. And if I put more salt in like I did before, it tastes salty. So it's an adaptive sense. We get used to it. That's what adaptive means. We get used to it. And so it's briefly this exercise, this activity talks about the blood pressure. What does blood pressure mean? The readings of where we have, this is the standard, the regular sort of blood pressure reading, the 80, 120 or 80, and then 130, the high normal, and the hypertension types. The hypertension means high blood pressure. And then also we talked then a little bit about a healthier lifestyle. And there was actually one guy who is Dr. Dean Ornish, and then also the Mayo Clinic is a big place for information from me. And Dr. Ornish is the guy who got Medicare to approve a preventative program, or a program that with natural means and prevention helps with the blood pressure epidemic. And that's remarkable because Medicare does not do those kind of programs. It does not approve those kind of preventative measures unless it's like with Mr. Ornish showed and did. And he's the only one, as I know of, that has accomplished that, to really show over time that his program is beneficial and helps. And so the information that I got mostly down here is largely from his work, um, and on how to manage blood pressure. And of course, we're going to go with the salt because that's what we're going to measure. And then we're also looking at the rest of a healthy diet. We're looking at exercise. Some extra pounds that we carry around might be contributing to that. More body mass. The heart has to pump the blood through more tissues, and so therefore it's going up also because of that. And then alcohol is another component that can be and smoking that can be also, and caffeine, that can bring the blood pressure up a little bit. I definitely need to work on the caffeine, but that's my advice at this point right now. And then of course stress, and that's where the deep breathing comes in, and like try to balance the stress a little bit and de-stress a little bit. Sometimes really hard, especially if we're going to school and working and having to raise kids at the same time. But nevertheless, it behooves us to be a little mindful of that, and try to work where we can with it. And yeah, take a deep breath or take a hot shower, or some extra sleep, go to bed a little earlier or something like that. And basically, that's what I want you to do. Track the intake of salt for 5 days, and then check the nutrition labels, or try to figure out as much you can if you cook your own meal. Usually when you buy prepared food, it's a higher issue than if your food is homemade. Usually the homemade foods has not as much salt in it than the store bought food, because salt, sugar, and fat makes us really want the foods again, because we are sort of yummy with that. And of course, the food industry uses those three components and boosts their stuff with that. So we want more of their stuff because they're interested in selling you the chips. They're not interested in the health, really. We got Ozempic for that. They don't need to worry about that. That was a little sarcastic, but we can talk about the Ozempic stuff at some point. I'm not just negative on that. I'm definitely really trying to be thoughtful and think about that, because it has many, many benefits. If we have, as a totality, we carry around less weight. It decreases the healthcare costs tremendously. And then as a part two, and then yeah, you do the daily totals for 5 days. And then as a part two, I want you to just work on these three questions. What are some of the largest sodium contributors in your diet? What surprised you? And how did this exercise help your awareness of the salt in your food? And then when you're done with it, you just take a picture of it and upload it in the Canvas. And if you have any questions, of course, please contact me. Pronto is the best. Email, as you probably have noticed, takes a few days. But it's also okay, because I'm also going to look at it, but it usually is a little harder for me to get to. The Pronto just shows up in my phone feed, and then I'm easily able to respond back to it fast and quickly. All right, so then that's the blood pressure health kit activity. And from there, we're going to go as to see what's next. Well, on my end, this is what that covers. And we cover the lab is Mr. Estrella's discussion, prerogative. And then we finish up with the questions and tips. And on those, please make sure they give you 5 points. So these are easy points. And so please make sure you do those. I always read those. I try to answer. This is probably the interestingly, the thing I read the most detailed, because I do want to get a little understanding of where you are in class and what's bothering you, and what's working for you, and so forth. And so it's a good forum for that. Also, go back. I don't know if you guys get announcements. At some point, I got to figure that out. But I don't think it gives announcements when somebody replies to your post, because it's not a login thing anymore. That seems to be a little bit more difficult. But I do post answers on those. So look back at one, during the week or something, the previous one. But also the other thing is, make sure you put your name in the post, because the ones that don't have a name in the post, I can't assign credit to. So I don't know who is doing it. And so you can always go back and look if you didn't get credit for one or so. I did find a couple mistakes, or some that do late, and then it takes me a while to go back to it. But if you do alter your past Padlets, text me or shoot me a prompt or an email, so I know to go back in and look at it. And the same is true for discussions. I still have people, students, that haven't gotten their full point value just because they haven't responded to a peer. And you can go back in the lecture portion, you can go back all the way to week 1 and get those things out of the way, because they will help your credit. They will help you score value, those 5 points. Especially if you need it. So if I did close some early modules and you want to go back, please just text me or pronto me. You can also text me, but pronto is sort of the official way we're doing it in Merced, and tell me to open those. I will reopen those activities and go back in and grade them. I want to make sure you get all the points possible in the lecture portion of the class, and I'm sure you like that too. And then on my side, make sure, just talk into me in case you have a question. Oh, good, no question, because I'm on the Google's Chrome screen here. But the other thing I want to finish up with, if there's no additional questions coming, is make sure you go to the test 2 lecture test review, and look at the main concepts for each chapter that I post here, all the bullet points, the main bullet points, in terms of what I want you to know for the test. So these are the main points I want you to know for the test as you get to the blood. And then the blood vessels was these. So it's not that many points. And I spell them out. So this is great material for flashcards as you study for it. The immune system is a little longer. That's a little bit of a more involved system. And make sure you understand all those bullet points, because if you understand them, you're probably going to do all right on the lecture test. So that's it, because we're down to the immune system this week, and then next week we're going to do endo and integumentary system, and then I believe after that we're going to have us that lecture exam. Although you guys are still lucky, next semester these tests are going to be in classroom, and so you guys get away with it. So yeah, see, we're going to do the test 2, lecture test 2, 25th to the 29th. So it's coming up in a little bit, about 10 days or so. Okay, but with that, I'm all good. I don't have any questions. What about you, Von Edsel? You got? Oh, here we go. What is the last day you can take this late work? Yeah, no, I got it. From my perspective, I'll open these units until the end. And so the finals week, therefore, is the last day you can go back and make up these works and make sure you get all the necessary points. Of course, you got to do the work, because I'm going to look at that when I grade it. But I'm able to open those till the end, and then at that point, it's out of my prerogative, and I can't. All right, good. Any other questions, or is that pretty good?